Podcast Episode 1, New Media, New Insights, an interview with Dr. Jordan McMartin.
Greetings and welcome to another episode of Alternative Insights. I'm your host, Gage Wood, and today we have a very special guest with us, none other than the renowned psychologist, Dr. Jordan McMartin. Dr. McMartin, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Gage. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
For those who may not be familiar with your work, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
Of course. I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor of psychology at the University of Montechase. I've been in the field for over 30 years, and I've written several books, including my best-selling 10 Rules for Insight, an antidote to the narrative. I've also been a frequent guest on various media outlets, discussing a wide range of topics related to psychology and personal development.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic of new media and how it has provided new insights on what is really going on, rather than what the mainstream narrative would like us to think. Dr. McMartin, as someone who has been in the field for quite some time, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Well, Gage, new media has certainly changed the way we consume information. The internet and social media have made it possible for a wider range of voices to be heard, and it has led to a much more diverse range of perspectives and ideas. However, this doesn't mean that the information we're getting is necessarily accurate or unbiased. In fact, the sheer volume of information available can make it even more difficult to separate fact from fiction. And don't forget, Gage, that we must be mindful of the sources of information we are consuming. New media has made it easy for anyone to share their ideas and opinions, but that doesn't mean that everything on the internet is true or trustworthy. We must be able to evaluate the credibility of the sources, and also be aware of the potential biases and hidden agendas.
That's definitely a good point, Dr. McMartin. And speaking of biases, what do you think about the current trend of cancel culture and the pressure to confirm views and ideologies?
I think it's a very dangerous trend, Gage. The idea of canceling someone or something because of their views or opinions is a form of thought control, and it's completely antithetical to the principles of free speech and open dialogue. It's important to remember that we won't always agree with everyone, but that doesn't mean we should silence them or try to shut down their ideas.
So, what do you think is the key to understanding what is really going on?
It all comes down to critical thinking and personal responsibility. We have to be willing to question what we're being told and to do our own research. The mainstream media is not always going to tell us the truth, and it's up to us to dig deeper and to seek out alternative sources of information. And that is where the new media has an advantage. It provides a platform for alternative voices.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons why your work has resonated with so many people. You're always encouraging people to take responsibility for their own lives and to think for themselves.
Yes, that's true. And I think that's more important now than ever before. We're living in a time of great change, and it's essential that we have the ability to think critically and to make our own informed decisions.
I couldn't agree more, Dr. McMartin. And I think that's one of the reasons why your work has been so important in recent years. You've been a vocal advocate for free speech and individual freedom, and I think that's something that resonates with a lot of people.
Thank you, Gage. It's a message that's needed now more than ever. And I think the new media has given us an opportunity to amplify that message and reach a wider audience.
Dr. McMartin, before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about another topic that's been on a lot of people's minds recently: the intersection of new media, AI, and the future. What are your thoughts on how these technologies will shape our society in the coming years?
It's an interesting and complex topic, Gage. I think there are both benefits and risks associated with the increasing role of AI and new media in our lives. On the one hand, these technologies have the potential to make our lives easier and more efficient. They can help us to process and analyze vast amounts of data and to make more informed decisions. On the other hand, there are also concerns about the impact of these technologies on our privacy, security, and well-being. There's the risk that our personal information will be used for nefarious purposes, or that we'll become too reliant on these technologies and lose our ability to think and act independently.
That's a really good point, Dr. McMartin.
And I think it's something we as a society need to be aware of and address as we continue to develop and integrate these technologies into our lives.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to remember that these technologies are not neutral. They are created and controlled by humans, and they reflect our values and biases. So it's essential that we have open and honest conversations about the implications of these technologies and make sure that we're using them in a responsible and ethical way.
Absolutely, Dr. McMartin. And I think that's a great note to end on. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts with us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
The pleasure is mine, Gage. Thanks for having me.
That concludes our interview with Dr. McMartin. We will see you next week on our next video.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when we put out the next video.